And you're still watching Prime Morning. It's time for Prime Insight, and today we are bringing a conversation your way, especially to parents who have preschool children. When I talk about preschool children, we are talking about children between the ages of 3 years and 5 years. Now, as a parent, of course, we always say that there is no special book you can follow to bring up your child. However, there are things that you can learn that can guide you in the upbringing of your children. When we take them to school, we often go pick them from school and we hear some complaints from the teachers telling us about how our children behave. Sometimes they'll tell you, oh, your child is too hyper, or your child doesn't speak at all, or your child is always beating another child, or your child is always visiting the washroom, or your child never listens, or your child is always sleeping. Sometimes you get worried and you wonder what the main issue is. Well, don't worry. Today we are bringing that conversation your way so you can get to know what to do about it in case you hear of any of these reports from the school. Now, we'll get as conversational as possible, especially to the parents out there. We'll activate the phone lines at some point. We'll encourage you to also send in your messages so that we can read it live on air for us to discuss this. Now, we couldn't have done this conversation without a speech therapist because they actually engage the parents and the schools often. They are called on so they can talk about it and help the children to gather their speeches with regards to the children who struggle to speak early. I know of some twin boys who started speaking at the age of 6. I was surprised. I was like, wow, 6 years? Yes. For some, they speak as early as 1 year. But if your child starts speaking at 6, is this something to worry about? Well, don't worry at all, because we have Rasha Jibril right here with us, and she is a speech therapist. Good morning, Rasha. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. You're looking so pretty.
Thank you.
You good? Great.
Good.
Now, okay, so how long have you been doing this?
3 years, 3 to 4 years max.
3 to 4 years.
Yes.
And the people that you teach the speech therapy, because obviously it's not just children,
yes,
or you concentrate only on children?
My focus is with children, pediatrics, but I do see other cases, adult cases.
Okay, now let's talk about the children, the ages, because we want to concentrate on the preschool, which is age 3 to 5 years.
Yes.
And this is where parents actually get very confused.
Yes.
You know, we'll talk about their behaviors, but let's narrow it down a little bit to the speech one before we talk about the behaviors. Okay. Do you have a lot of parents coming to you or schools calling on you saying that, oh, the child is 3 years, but the child can't speak?
Yes, we actually do. In recent times, we've seen like an upsurge in cases of kids not talking on time or being extremely or severely delayed. And so they do come to us to seek intervention at Klick Africa Foundation, or they seek intervention privately with other speech therapists.
But how, you know, when you say there's been an upsurge, is there a particular reason for that?
So recent research is showing that there wasn't any form of assessment tools to actually screen and then diagnose these kids. But with recent studies, there's been intensive assessment tools that is bringing out these cases and making diagnosis very easier. And so we are seeing a lot of cases. But some people are saying, there's another theory, school of thought, saying that there might actually be something wrong, and so people should be looking into it.
Could it be the food? Could it be, you know, what the mothers take during pregnancy? Could it be that people are having children during their late age? Could all of that be a factor?
Yes, a lot of these things are factors, especially for maternal age. So we see that a lot of women are going into the workspace, and so they put their careers ahead and then they delay childbirth. And so these have significant effects on the children they intend to bring forth. Yes.
Right. Now, talking about this, I don't know if you're experiencing anything like that as well. If you have a young child and, you know, you have speech issues with a child and you're wondering what the problem could really be, we're talking about that. And we're also talking about their behaviors as well with regards to, you know, how they tend to be very hyper in classrooms, how they tend to be very quiet, how they tend to beat other children, being aggressive and all of that. Right here on Prime Morning, Prime Insight, this is what we are discussing. Now, you can call us and we will definitely hear what you have to say with regards to your child. Now, you're saying there's been an upsurge. Again, I go back to it. Now, looking at the age, what is the age that we really get worried when the child hasn't spoken?
By 2 years, if your child hasn't said a word, you should be worried and start seeking intervention. 3 to 4 years, we consider it a disorder. for 2 years, it's a delay. But for 3 to 4 years, it becomes a disorder. But by 2 years, if your child is not saying his or her first words, you should start seeking early intervention.
What if you don't seek the intervention, but the child ends up speaking at 6 years?
Yes.
Does it happen?
It does. So there's a 50% chance. So there's a chance that your child might actually talk, outgrow the speech delay and talk. And then there's also a 50% chance that your child might not outgrow it. So you can't leave it to chance. You can't leave it to probability. So you need to start seeking intervention as soon as possible.
Now, talking about seeking, intervention as soon as possible, again, you ask yourself, okay, somebody can say that my child, in our family, we don't start speaking early. The boys don't speak early. What about that? Can that also happen?
Yes, so typically, boys are more delayed than girls. You see boys maybe talk around 24 months max, but you can't, as I said earlier, you can't leave it to chance. You can't say, oh, my mom says I spoke late and so I can leave this to chance. My child will definitely talk. No. Seek intervention as soon as possible.
So what are some of the few words that we should pick up from this child to know that my child is speaking?
So by 12 months, your child should start saying, mama, dada. Your child should start pointing. Social skills should be there. They should be able to initiate interaction, get your attention, and then request for basic items like water, food, and things like that. And by 24 months, they should be combining 2 words. So mama, water, dada, drink or juice or something like that. 3 years, 3-word sentences. And
so 2 years, 2 words, 3 years, 3 words.
Exactly.
So let's roughly say 2 years, 2 words, 3 years, 2 words, 4 years, 2 words. Is there a cause to worry?
There is a cause to worry.
But the child is speaking.
The child is speaking, but not at an appropriate age. So 4 years, your child is still using 2-word sentences. It's a worry. You should seek intervention. We need to know why your child is 4 years and still using 2-year-old speech. And so based on assessments, we can come up with a diagnosis and start intervention.
Can it also be that the food you feed the baby with, some people believe that some of the milk that they give to the babies actually do affect them?
So yes, there's a theory that gut-related issues can sometimes bring about social challenges in developing children. And so there's this diet, GFCF diet, that some people have sworn to have improved their kids. But there hasn't been a lot of research into it. But I will say that try everything. Try every type of intervention. Anything that would help, try it.
Anything that will help.
Yeah.
But I mean, with regards to, we've heard, like I'm saying, it's not what will fix it. It's what can cause it.
Yes.
Can the food cause it? Can some of the food you start feeding them as babies cause it?
As I said, there hasn't been extensive
no research on it.
Yes, so
okay.
I can't say it to a fact.
Okay.
Yes.
So for that alone, please, if you are a mother out there and your child can't speak, don't attribute it to any food that you're feeding the child, because we can't speak to facts with regards to that. But can we speak to facts with regards to the people surrounding the child? Sometimes they say that child speaks early because there are other children at home. And so, that kind of engagement helps. But when the children don't have anybody by them, then it means that there might be some delayed speech.
Yes, so peer interaction plays a huge role in developing a child's speech. Now, it doesn't mean that kids who are alone or who don't have peer interactions won't talk. But sometimes when the children don't get peer interactions, all these factors, including other factors like genetics, environmental factors like during pregnancy and during infancy, can lead to the child not developing speech at an earlier age.
Right. So talking about this, now we want to get interactive, like I said earlier, and so if you have any issues with regard to even speeches, you can call us and share your story with us, because Rasha Jibril is here and she is actually a speech therapist. Now, you've been doing this for a while.
Yes.
Let's roughly take this year. We are just in the 2nd month, which is today is the last day of the month.
Yes.
I just want to know, how many children have you helped within these 2 months?
I have quite a caseload. I have a huge caseload. I can't easily disclose my caseload.
That's fine.
Yes, but with consistency, I've seen significant improvements. No matter how little it is, there's been improvement in all the kids I've seen. That's what
How long does it take before they start speaking?
It depends on the child. So they need intrinsic motivation and also consistency across every setting. So I might be doing my part. I might be having 45 to 60-minute sessions with the child, but it's just for a short period. So caregivers also need to put in a lot of effort. Teachers, other people, anybody involved with the child needs to put in effort with the child in order for us to see progress. And so progress depends on, one, the child's intrinsic motivation and the people around. How often the child receives therapy is key. That is how we can see progress.
Now, as a parent, what do I also do to support after I've hired a speech therapist?
There's a lot you can do. So you spend most of the time with the child. And so you can incorporate speech into daily routines. When bathing the child, you can sing rhymes, talking about body parts. Keep your words, keep your utterances in single words. So the child is able to, and keep it in nouns. So this is cap. You don't even have to say this is cap. Just say cap whilst holding a cap or pointing at a cap. There's also a strategy, two strategies actually, called parallel talk and then self-talk. So parallel talk is when the child is performing an action and then you comment on what the child is doing.
Okay.
And then self-talk is when you are doing the action and the child is around and then you comment on the action that you are doing.
Okay.
Yeah, so these strategies actually help. Research has shown that these strategies help with development of speech.
Right. So we'll go on the phone line, but should I? Okay, let me go on this phone line. Hello, good morning, Gwen.
Hello,
Prince,
madam.
sorry, Prince, how are you?
Please, I'm fine.
Great. Talk to us.
Please, I have a 4-year baby boy, and he talks all right, but it's like it's not clear. The language when he's talking is not that clear.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
Prince. Rasha, what will somebody like this do?
Yes, so if a child's speech is unintelligible to a non-familiar listener, it's a challenge. And so we look at what is called phonological and articulation disorders. Primarily, children should develop all speech sounds by 4 to 7 years. All speech sounds should be developed.
By 4 to 7 years. I think we want to hear you a little bit because my callers are like, yeah, they are glued to their television set. Yeah.
Yes, and so by 4 years, we look at some of the sounds that the child has developed, and if it tallies, for instance, for Prince's child, if he brings him to the clinic, I would first talk to the child, develop rapport with the child, and see what areas of his speech are actually lacking and why we are unable to understand him clearly. Yeah. But most likely, this is a case of articulation disorder.
Okay.
So maybe he's omitting some sounds, or maybe he's substituting some sounds. If there are no physical challenges, like if there's no slurred speech, if his facial symmetry is okay, if he doesn't have a cleft lip or palate, then we look at phonological disorders.
Which one is the cleft lip?
So cleft lip is like an indentation or like a like a hole in your mouth or on your lip. And then a cleft palate is the hole in your palate. So the palate is the soft tissue in the upper region of our mouth.
Okay.
And so there's a hole there, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when the child has a hole there, it will affect the speech.
Yes, it will definitely affect speech.
And then you said the palate as well?
So that's the palate.
That's the palate.
And the lip.
The lip is
Yes.
where? Around your lips. No, because my viewers want to know, because sometimes you might not even notice these things, or you might have noticed and you think that, oh, it's normal, you know, and you will not know that is the reason why your child is struggling to speak. So where exactly on the mouth is the hole?
So it could be any point in the mouth. It could be like a dissection of your mouth. So some part of your lip is parted, and so it makes lip rounding, lip closure very difficult, and so eating is also a challenge. And when everyone is talking, they definitely close their mouth at some point.
Right.
And so speech would definitely be unintelligible.
Okay. Let me go to Kumasi. Good morning, Abubakar.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning, madam.
Good morning, Abubakar. Talk to us.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, and then it's a nice program.
Thank you.
I have a child who is less than 2 years. I think 1 year, 8 months, thereabout. And whatever you say, he can understand. Whatever sign, anything you say, he can. But the speech is not coming. Like he only said Dada, Mama, and that is all.
Okay.
I don't know whether
so 1 year.
Too early. I don't know whether it's too early to be worried.
Okay, let's hear what Rasha has to say.
The child is 12 months.
Yes.
And the child is saying Mama, Dada,
Yeah.
and understands everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be worried about.
Okay.
Yes.
So Abubakar, it looks like your child is doing very well, so there's nothing to be worried about. So then when the child hits about 3 years and the child still repeats Mama, Dada, and doesn't say anything, then there's a lot to worry about.
There's a lot to worry about.
Okay. Now, I'm just wondering, why some children will, theirs come and it comes natural, even though it delays.
Yes. So a lot of factors play in for speech delay to occur. Genetics, environmental factors, so maybe exposure to lead during pregnancy or early infancy, traumatic brain injury during infancy, like a whole lot could occur for speech delay to also occur. But there's no definite cause. If there are no known physical occurrences, like for instance, you have low tone in your facial muscles, you don't have cleft palate, you don't have hearing.
Like you said earlier.
Exactly. You don't have any form of hearing loss or auditory impairment, then there's no known cause for speech delay, your speech delay or a child's speech delay.
Now, there's ADHD.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. So it's a persistent pattern of inattention and hyperactivity and impulsivity that affects functioning or interferes with functioning and development. And it should be present, the symptoms should be present before age 12, and we should be seeing symptoms by 3 years. And these symptoms should be present every day consistently for 6 months to make a correct diagnosis.
So what are the symptoms we are looking at?
So there are 3 types. There's inattention, and then there's hyperactivity and impulsivity, and then there's a combination of these two. So for inattention, the child is unable to focus on an activity or a task, a given task. The child is easily distracted. The child has poor working memory. The child is easily forgetful and may lose things. And for hyperactivity and impulsivity, the child may talk abruptly. It's like they're always on the go. They always want to run around. It's as if they're powered by a machine. Always on the go. They are very fidgety. They're unable to sit for a long period of time. They may blurt out answers. They may talk when it's not their turn. And for kids who are developing, they may be unable to take turns. So maybe throwing a ball and then catching, they may not be able to do that.
Let me go all the way to the north and speak with my other caller. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Your name, please.
This is Eric.
Eric, talk to us.
Yeah. I have a 7-year-old child. He's a preterm. Okay.
Okay.
He understands the local language very well, but the English and the speech is not so fluent.
But can he speak the local language? Can he speak it?
Fra, he speaks it very well. He understands every speech of it.
Okay.
But when he's trying to pronounce things, he finds it difficult.
In English?
Even English, even the Fra.
Even in Fra as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Eric, 1 second. Don't cut the call yet. So Eric's case, this is a case whereby the 7-year-old can understand the Fra, but struggles to understand the English.
Yes.
Can speak some of the Fra, but not everything, and struggles to speak English.
Yes. Yes. So
if you have any questions, you can ask him before so they can answer all the questions.
Right. So is he able to understand instructions in English? Is he able to say some words in English at all? Do you think that the English is or the Fra is interfering with the acquisition of the English language?
Eric?
Yeah, he grew up in the village, but he understands everything. But going to school, he starts picking up slowly.
Hello?
So he understands them, but he doesn't know how to say it clearly. Find it difficult. Actually, he's a premature child.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, sure. Eric, thank you. Rasha?
Yeah, so this is a clear case of bilingualism. So the child has already acquired a first language, which is the L1, and now he's been pushed into school and is trying to learn an L2. That is like he's trying to put on a new language. And so the first language might interfere with the acquisition of the L2, which is the new language he's trying to learn. And so it has nothing to do with him being preterm. The first language is interfering with the acquisition of the the second language. And so that is why we see maybe deficits in acquisition of the English language in school.
Right. Okay, we are being joined on the line by our very own Yesuto Gbewonyo Amedofu. I hope I got your name right. Dr. Yesuto I'll try it again. It's okay. She's the head of interventions, training and outreach in Aiden. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning. I'm not Doc yet. I'm listening. That's the father's question about his 7-year-old.
Yeah.
Let me just add to what Rasha said.
Okay.
The father has mentioned that the child was also a premature child, born prematurely. And so there are various brain development processes that occur at the latter part of the gestational period. And so when some of those processes have also not occurred, it can delay such things as language acquisition. And so it's not, yes, there is the environmental bit, but there's also the issues around the birth process. So therapy, of course, will be helpful. At 7 years, I will not say it is impossible, but I'll say he might face some difficulties. But then again, we should also look at it in the context of the acquisition of both languages. How is he in the previous language? Also, he said he has just started school. Is it in a new environment? The school he attends, is it in a new environment?
Yeah, because from what he's saying, the boy grew up in the village and has moved to the city.
And has moved to the city?
Yes.
Recently?
Yes.
Okay, so that can also, so that's the environmental bits of that would make him sometimes also feel shy. Now remember that around that age of 7, they are becoming aware. They want to be. They are developing. They are now developing their peer relationship, and there's a sense of competition at times and all of that. So it can be that he's also held back a bit because of the social circumstance around him, which is the fact that he's coming from the village. He's in this new space. He's not confident about speaking yet. Probably also not confident about his current environment yet. So those are some things to consider.
Right. Now, we are talking about the ADHD as well. And yes, Rasha has spoken a bit about the signs and the symptoms to look out for. But another thing that a parent will be wondering is how a child can get these things like ADHD. How is it that a child is affected with it?
This child?
Yes, any child with ADHD. How does the child get affected with it?
Oh, so the main thing, so ADHD is one of those things we call a neurodevelopmental disorder. And one of the key challenges we have with neurodevelopmental disorders is the fact that it affects daily functioning. So that is the biggest thing. So everything in not just academics, but even in completing simple tasks, a child with ADHD might struggle to complete those tasks, so to see a task through to the end. They might have difficulties when it comes to what you want to call, in layman's terms, self-control. And so they might speak in the middle of someone's speech, or, they just have to get their point in right away and without consideration of, oh, I have to wait for this person to finish talking, and then I can also say what I want to say. At times, again, because of this impulsivity, they may say things without thinking about it. And so I had some parents say, and my child is always lying. And sometimes it's not necessarily that they are lying, especially if they've gone past that stage where there is a blurring of lines between what is real and what is made up. But just because they don't want to think through what happened, and it's a lot of work for them, they might just say, oh, who spilled the thing here? And they know the next question will be, how did it happen? They don't want to go through all of that. So then they'll just say, not me.
Right.
And, pardon me?
I said right.
Yeah, because they just, going through that process of thinking and recalling and going back, it's sending them back. And it's a lot of work, and so they try to escape that by just, giving you these short answers of, I don't know, or not me. And so a lot of that gets them in trouble as well.
And then there's the inattention one. That one actually does get most of the children in trouble because they keep forgetting their things. Mommy will wear them, clothes. They go somewhere, forget to bring it. They leave their water bottles in school. They forget where they put their bags. And it becomes a problem for the child because mommy, daddy doesn't understand that the child is struggling with these things. They just feel that child is careless.
Yes, and so it's very important. I say that having some structure helps with regulating these things. And so we find that the child might be able to progress well when there is structure. So they know that after this, we have this, after this, we have this, and it's almost automatic. So even in some cases of children with ADHD, you will find that so long as it's a structured part of the day, and it's things they're interested in, they kind of go through without too much stress. The stress is there a bit, but it's not too much. It becomes more when, number one, they find the things around them not interesting. It is more, so it's just a compounding of the effect, of having things that I'm not interested in also going on, and then unstructured things going on. And so helping the child by talking through the structure and having little reminders, using cues as reminders can also help.
Can they ever outgrow it, this behavior?
So I will not say, I wouldn't necessarily say so. ADHD is lifelong, okay? But when we talk, you might outgrow certain behavior. Through the development of coping mechanisms, certain behaviors are better managed. The person knows himself, knows that when I'm faced with an assignment, I'm a last minute, I'm not going to think about it till it's the night before, right? And so the person begins to have strategies like starting off a part of it or giving themselves intermittent deadlines and having people who would serve as checks for them, or more or less. So as a parent, if you know that, you first thing is your child brings homework, find out when is it due, and then you can put in between deadlines so that by the time the actual deadline is up, that child has completed it. And really, to get that child to be able to get to that point, there must be some kind of reward. And many people with ADHD also have this thing about high moments. So if the thing is not going to give them a high moment, let me put it in that sense, they are not likely to complete it or do it. And it has to be short, like it's a short thing. The next minute, they have something else coming up. And so it's important that you are not stretching them too much. And if it's something that's going to be a long stretch, they're broken down in ways that there are these points of satisfaction and reward that can come with meeting each step.
Right. And now, another concern here, of course, as a parent, you'll be wondering, how do I know that my child actually does have ADHD? Because the kind of symptoms that we are talking about is like almost every child goes through it. And parents don't have the kind of patience that they have to have for the children.
Can you take that again, please?
How can a parent know that that child is suffering from ADHD? Because the symptoms that we are mentioning, most children actually do go through the symptoms, talking about the inattention, the hyperactiveness, and all of that.
Okay, so first of all, it's not just a matter of my child is inattentive. It's not just a matter of my child is hyperactive. In fact, these days I'm talking to parents who expect that their 3-year-old is sitting for 30 minutes, when in fact the attention span to an activity for a 3-year-old is just around the range of 9 minutes, average. And so you want to also ensure that this is something that has nothing to do with the fact that there is no structure at home. You want to make sure that it is occurring in various spaces. You want to ensure that it is also something that has been going on for about 6 months or more. Because it's not just about, for the last 2 weeks, I've noticed my son is jumping around. Remember that a lot of, especially in early childhood, jumping around and all of those things is actually the way the children learn. And so you want to make sure that you have somebody who is qualified to do that assessment. You can see a neuropediatrician, you can see a clinical or educational psychologist, and most of these people will be in the position to properly diagnose a child if they do have ADHD.
All right. Let me come back to the studio speaker, Rasha. Rasha, yes, to please don't go anywhere yet. Okay, well, I'll definitely have to come back to you. Yes, to talk, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, don't go yet. I'll come back to you and have more conversation with you. I just want to come to Rasha and have some conversation with her, especially with regards to, more parents calling in and talking about the speech impairment issue. Now, if you're training a child, what are the processes that you go through with a child to enable the child talk again? Or talk, because not even talk again. It's not that they started and they have to go back to it.
All right, thank you. So the goal is not for the child to talk. Talking is, so with the language pyramid, talking is actually the last thing on the top. Speech is the last thing. And so there are processes that the child needs to go through. There should be attention and listening. There should be play skills. There should be understanding. There should be social skills. There should be speech. There should be, language, expression of language. It doesn't have to be through speech. It could be through gestures. It could be through signs before speech actually occurs. And so when I assess the child, I look at the child's level. Is the child able to, has the child gone through all these stages? If the child has and the speech is still not there, how can I supplement what the child already knows? So for a child who is not talking, I would look at ways in which he's requesting. For instance, some children will just look, and looking will not be universal for everyone. If I want something, I come to you and I'm just looking. You might not know what I want. And so I find ways to make speech functional or communication functional for this child. And so I might use a communication board, I might use the picture exchange communication system, or I might use text-to-speach.
So there are other steps that you follow?
Yes, there are steps that I will follow.
So what are the steps?
As I said earlier, I'll first assess and look at the child's level under the language pyramid. And so the child needs to come with a diagnosis first. So that is the child on the spectrum? Does the child have ADHD? Is the child already verbal? Is the child already using ways and means of requesting? And so there's no clear-cut path. There are different techniques that we use. And so there's nothing like, I'm going through this. If this doesn't work, I can go through another means of getting the child to be more functional.
So every child is different?
Very different, each and every child.
Wow.
Yes.
Does cartoons help?
Screen time is not the best.
Oh, it's not?
Yes, so recent research has showed that children shouldn't be given the screen till about 3 years, yeah. And so screen time doesn't help these kids.
But most of these children now speak like, you know, the cartoons they watch.
Exactly. Are we happy with that? We are not. We don't want the kids to come and be like, no.
And most parents are happy.
Really?
Most parents are happy with this. But it's actually helping, you know, with their speech. Because I didn't want to mention a cartoon, but that particular cartoon, anytime children watch it, it enables them to speak. Yes, and they speak just like the cartoon, Peppa Pig.
Right.
Yes, they speak just like the cartoon when the children watch it. And you hear them say, Mama Pig, Papa Pig, Mama Pig. So they pick up so yes, as you're saying, screen time might not be the best, but I've seen children who have learnt their speeches from some of them. But they say it's not the best, right?
Yeah, so are these kids, were they non-verbal and then after watching the cartoons, they became verbal from the cartoons?
Okay, no, my question here was to do with, will it help? You know, as you are taking the child through a speech therapy, will it help as well?
Yeah, so some kids are known as visual learners, so they learn mainly by looking. So you have to supplement whatever you say by giving them visual cues. And so they might learn from what we call visual modeling or video modeling. Okay. And so they will learn whatever video they are watching. And since we don't want them to talk like Peppa Pig, we want them to talk like us. We would rather supplement whatever we are teaching them with videos of ourselves.
Okay.
Performing an action or saying something and doing an action so that they learn how we talk. That is for visual learners, but some kids are not visual learners, and so they won't learn from Peppa Pig.
Okay, all right. So every child is different. So as a parent, please, it's not because A used this to enable the child to speak, you should use the same. The best is to get a therapist. Yes, Uto. Hello, yes, Uto.
Yes.
Yes, and there are other behaviors as well with these children. Let's talk about some of them. I know ADHD is one. I know the speech therapy is one. What are the others we should look out for?
You mean the neurodevelopmental disorders or the...
I couldn't hear you there. What did you say?
Yeah, you were saying ADHD is one.
Yes, so there are different types of behaviors to look out for in the children, right?
Okay, yes. So I won't. So if you say ADHD is one, so I won't talk about these as behaviors, or as classification of behaviors. So like I said, I would be looking at these more as what we usually call neurodevelopmental disorders.
Right.
Okay, and these neurodevelopmental disorders have a way of impacting behaviors. So ADHD, for instance, might occur with autism, which is also a neurodevelopmental disorder. It might occur with specific learning disability, which is also a learning disorder, which also is a neurodevelopmental disorder. And so when it comes to the behaviors, I would say the behaviors are what we would say maybe delayed speech, inattention, difficulty socializing, and all these things are things that you see even when it comes to ADHD.
Right. Now, how can children with ADHD be managed in school?
Okay, so in school, one of the things you want is structure. Structure is a very important thing. What kind of structures exist? Now, Russia was talking about screen time, and it will amaze you to know that most of our preschools are giving these children a lot more screen time hours than they should for the ages that they are. And so that is one aspect. The other thing that you also want to pay attention to is teaching methods. You can't just have a teacher coming to teach with a blackboard and no learning materials. They need to have the learning materials that are engaging. You need to have intermittent breaks. Children learn by doing, most of them. It's the time they're moving around. Movement is one of the ways. And especially for children with ADHD, especially when it comes to the hyperactivity part, you want to have school programs or educational programs or teaching programs that are that are ones that allow them to move around.
Right. Does naughty corners help? Does screaming help? Or does, you know, being stern on that baby help? That child help?
Pardon me?
Does naughty corners help? Being stern on that child help? Screaming on that child help?
Okay, so I won't call it being stern. I will call it having structure. It's very important to have structure because that is the only way that the child would know what to expect. A child's agitation is more if they do not know what to expect. There are issues when it comes to staying focused is more when they don't know what to expect. And so it's very important that teachers remind. So if you have a structure, it's easier because then you can remind the person about what to expect. So we're writing our numbers now. We are paying attention to the teacher now. You just give those prompts. I know people think of I have to be 10. I wouldn't put it as 10. I would say be firm. Okay, be firm meaning that you are going to ensure that there's consistency. You are going to ensure that whatever you are doing, the child can predict as well. Because when they can predict, it helps. So, for instance, you say, what are we supposed to be doing now? It's easier for the child if they can predict. And then they'll be like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this. And then it helps them to conform.
Right, right. And let me come to Rasha. Please, yes, don't go yet. I'll let you give your final words before you go. So, Rasha, as a parent, how do I discover that my child has this ADHD? Is there a special test I can go run?
Yes, so you need to first observe your child over the period of 6 months, and your child should exhibit behaviors that are in line with what I said earlier, inattention, hyperactivity, impulsivity. And within these 6 months, if you notice that your child exhibits some of these signs, you should first go and see the doctor. And so he may refer you to a neuropediatrician, and they run behavioral tests and brain scans to check if your child indeed has ADHD, and then recommend the right persons to treat you with therapies and then medications.
If a child is not treated, what are the consequences we are looking at?
Treat it as early as possible, but obviously...
if you don't notice it early.
Exactly, you might not notice it early. There are lots of consequences. So inattention means that the child is unable to focus in class, and so they might get bad grades. Impulsivity or hyperactivity might mean that they're unable to take turns interacting with peers, initiating interactions, and so this might affect their ability to make friends and even keep friends. And so it has drastic effects on them, and then they grow up unable to sustain work or maintain work and be in any form of relationship. And these sometimes lead to depression in adulthood and anxiety. They end up doing drugs.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
This is an eye-opener. So at least if you don't take very good care of it, or you don't treat it as early as possible, this child they can grow up and be depressed and go into drugs.
Yeah.
Yes, Uto. Hello, yes, Uto.
So I can hear you.
Yes. So if you find out that your child has ADHD, do you take your child from the normal school to a special school?
No, not at all. You don't need to take your child to a special institution. In fact, we have many people with ADHD walking around in society, and I mean, they're going through daily life. Some of them see it as, oh, this is me, this is my behavior, and they've been able to find coping mechanisms. However, when it comes to educational structures, these days I would say that we're having a lot more issues. The kind of educational structure we have is very different. I remember having classmates who today, looking back, I would definitely have them as, I mean, they will be diagnosed, and some actually have been diagnosed as having had ADHD. And so you don't have to take them out of the regular school into a special school. But what you can do is educate the teachers. So you can get So we have programs where we educate teachers about strategies to use in the classroom, not just for the benefit of children who have ADHD, but for the benefit of all children. And the things you put in place do not only benefit that child with ADHD, it makes your work as a teacher much easier, it makes it fun. And I look back, we talk about activity-based learning today. Well, the primary school I went to, we have activity-based learning. We had role plays. I remember having all these empty tins in the back of the class where we used to play shop when we are going to talk about money and do mathematics and actions, using money and all of those things. Like things were very hands-on. So I'm sure that all these ADHD behaviors, we're seeing less of it in spaces like where I went to school. And I think that just by incorporating these things, rather than the recent requirement of children to just sit throughout the day and just throughout a lesson, let me put it that way, it's more sit and listen rather than a lot more move. That's when you're going to have a lot more of these issues. And so when we have the avenues through which the children can do, through which they can express themselves, because these children don't have any intellectual disability anyway. Right. Most of the time, they are the ones who even know so much. And they know so much that the teacher is already boring. And the teacher is not even differentiating instruction. They're giving everybody the same thing. I know schools have been talking about universal design for learning, but they are not implementing it because many people just don't know how. They still don't see how it's possible. But it's a very easy way to be able to just teach children in so many ways the same thing, and you're going to have them recall it better, you're going to have them have better attention, and you're going to have them participate better. And so if the child is not participating even by writing, because they can't complete their writing, they would have maybe done some other project around that topic, or they would have done a rap or done a song, like something that incorporates other aspects of the child's ability, rather than just to sit, to read, to write, and reproduce what has been taught.
Right. I'll activate the phone line just to tell you don't have to go anywhere, because I know most parents would want to ask you a few questions. So I'm going to activate the phone lines to pick a few calls. If you have any questions with regards to these behavioral symptoms in your children, and of course I know most parents are experiencing it with regards to, the inattention, the hyperactiveness. I've heard stories of parents say, oh, my child is so hyperactive that when my child is sick, I know my child is sick. But if my child is not hyperactive, when my child is sick, I won't know. And we've heard stories of, my child is too quiet, I wish my child would be a little bit vocal like other children, or my child is inactive, I give my child a water bottle and my child is always misplacing the water bottle, or always misplacing their books, or always misplacing their shoes. All of these come to play. Sometimes we just say, oh, so just forget about it, but it looks like it's not just that. There's more that we can do as parents to help our children so they don't grow up being depressed, having learning disorders and all of that. Because the learning disorder is another thing. Good morning, Constance. How are you?
Rosalind.
Yes, Constance.
Topic ya mutriti.
Amen.
Me wo baby tisia wenyi na no ye premature sa. Na mpiti ase no me behu se na sumu kra entini woni tekrema ase. Rage 4 year me wo Rage Hospital then. Omu yi free ho ma me aso say na sum me ko baby. Omu say hands opposite Coco Clinic. Omu ma me ko ye test wo ho bai no omu hwe no. But ase onyi no. Me hu say de bia wo di ntro. Ena osuma na de mienu say kofa bow ene knife bra. Oba kofa ba akwa ba. Ase won kai. De bia ne re fini ho. Sister ma ko hospital doctor ti ma me ko ye test. Eso omu nka hwe nkyere me. Enti na mi tie mu se me afa ebo mi hu kakra. Ana so de uje hu kasa chere bibia ontie. Ebia sometimes I have to punish him. And funny ho say ade we ya no ye na me punish no. Obesaya ye biem. Tete me tie we no misrel. Doctor si wo bibia obetimi akacha na baby obekire me a. Ka mani beje pa.
Constance Obano we di say?
Sisi our 14 years.
14.
OJHS 3.
Wow. Mami ko yesu to.
No breast or addition.
Learning disorder.
Extra.
Mami ni Dr. Ninkasa, thank you for calling. Hello, good morning. Yesu to. I was going to go back on the line. Yesu to, this case is a little bit dicey. 14 years. So what can be done?
Okay, so I heard her saying her child is premature. Can you give a small translation for me?
The child was premature. The child had, I don't know what term it is, but had tongue tie. She took the child to the hospital. It was cut, and it looks like as the child grew up, the child keeps lying. The child also forgets easily, and the child has learning disorder.
Okay, so I think I already mentioned that when you are born prematurely, you're already at risk of certain developmental delays because there are aspects of the brain that should develop in the latter stages of gestation, and that doesn't happen. So there's some neurons that have to, either be fired or, basically there are things that have to form. Okay, some neural connections that have to form, some have to be pruned and all of that. So these things do not happen as easily when you are born prematurely because the condition for it to occur is altered. All right. Now, beyond that, I'm sure there are other things that must have happened in the child's life. There are issues of nutrition to consider. There are issues of
talking about the nutrition. Yes, you talk. Yes, yes. Hold on for me, okay? Let me go on the line again because even talking about the nutrition is another conversation altogether. But let me go and speak with Angela. Good morning, Angela.
Yes.
Angela, please speak up for me.
Please, good morning.
Good morning. Talk to us.
Okay, please.
Angela, I can barely hear you.
Please, my own is about the child.
I can't hear you, Angela.
We cannot.
Your own is about?
Sitting. My child cannot speak straight.
Your child cannot speak?
Yes, please.
How old is your child, Angela?
He is 7 months.
7 months?
Yes.
And he cannot speak? Angela, are you...
Yeah, he sit straight.
Okay. You said he cannot sit straight?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, I'm struggling to understand you, Angela.
Please, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, tell me. Say it again.
7 months, but he cannot sit straight. The neck.
Oh, okay. Okay, now I understand what you mean. Okay, Angela. All right, thank you. Let me speak with Rasha and see if there's anything Rasha can say about it.
So if there are gross motor delays, there's a differential of, you need to go for a diagnosis. It could be cerebral palsy, it could be low muscle tone, it could be a lot of things. So you need to go for a diagnosis first, but we'll start speech therapy as soon as possible.
But the child is 7 months.
Yes, but we can still start. We can still give her activities she can do to help the child in speech development because the child is at risk of developing speech delay.
Okay, yeah. Because of the neck not sitting straight.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But there's a method that when they put a thread around the neck, it helps.
I have never heard of that, but it's obviously a myth.
Yes, there's a myth like that. So there are some things that we don't have to just get up and believe.
Exactly.
You always have to seek medical assistance. Okay. Yes, Uto. Hello, yes, Uto.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. Let's quickly touch on the nutrition and then you can go, please.
Yes, so I was going to say that nutrition along other conditions can help to either, aside other interventions, can help to reduce the impact that a preterm birth can have on a child. And so it's very important that even right from the time the child is born and throughout the stages of early childhood development, that parents are not just thinking about their gross motor, but they are looking at all the other things that go into it. Where I say nutrition is part, Russia has talked about screen time exposure. The child is already at risk. So we want to minimize those risks by ensuring that they have a better side of these things, more social interaction and more intensive social interaction alongside other interventions. And then also, just to add to what she said about tongue tie, I would say that tongue tie does not impact speech. At least so far, that's what the research is saying. And so people get that done, and it doesn't have any, they get a cut, and it doesn't have any impact whatsoever.
But can something be done about the 14-year-old?
Pardon me?
Can something be done about the 14-year-old, or it's too late? Constance, 14-year-old.
So with the 14-year-old, I say that a lot of the early development has happened, and the foundation has been laid, but it only means that it's going to be more difficult.
Okay.
Right now, I would say parents should focus more on what the child can do.
Okay.
So having a needs assessment to determine what the child can do, and as leveraging on that to support them is going to be the best way, rather than trying to focus on what they can't do and letting them be stagnated based on that.
Yes, Uto, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We are very grateful. Fortunately, you couldn't make it here, but you still did the phone call for us. We are grateful. Have a good day. We've been speaking with Yesuto Amedofo. She's the head of interventions, training and outreach at Aiden. And also Rasha, thank you so much for being here. We are very grateful.
Thank you.
And Rasha Jibril, that's her name. She's a speech therapist. And so if you want to get in touch, where exactly is your hospital?
Klick Africa Foundation.
Klick Africa Hospital. Okay. It's a school, right?
Yes, it's an early intervention center.
Right. And where is it located?
Domipila 2.
Domipila 2. Fantastic. Yeah. So if you are around Domipila, even if you are not there, but your child needs help, please make sure you get in touch with them so they can support you. Do you want to put your number out? The number for the school? Yeah. Or we can go on social media, right?
Yes.
So that spell it for us.
Klick is KLICKS.
Okay.
And then Africa Foundation.
Okay, so it's Klick's Africa Foundation. Now there's another group coming together with GES, and it's Equilinks. Equilinks and GES, they actually have something they are bringing to you in conjunction with Tema Metropolis. They are working together to make sure that we can help children with these needs. Now they will assist schools to identify these problems, to manage them, and use the interventions to address these disorders. Let's talk about the dyslexia. We are talking about anxiety in children. We are talking about the ADHD, which we just discussed. I mean, others as well. So they are bringing it your way. They will attend this one-day program. So for schools in Tema, they encourage everybody to attend this one-day program. Please, and please again, it's very, very important, because just imagine, you don't know that your child has this, and your child grows up and the child becomes I don't know, there's so much the child can go through. So please, let's try as much as possible to help our children so they don't grow up battling all sort of issues. This has been Primary Side. Of course, coming up next is another conversation that I'm definitely going to stay glued to, talking about halitosis. You know about halitosis?
I do know about halitosis.
If somebody has it, can you tell the person?
No.
You can't?
I can't.
Really? Wow. Why?
I feel like it's a very sensitive topic.
It is a very sensitive topic, and that's why we are bringing it to your way this morning. We have to talk about it and see how best we can help others who have it as well. Do stay tuned for that conversation. That's coming up next. We'll be right back.